Hello, everyone. We're so happy to have you here with us on the Stronger Marriage webinar, produced by the Utah Marriage Commission, hosted by Utah State University. I'm Alexis Alcott, the UMC Program Coordinator, and we're excited to have you join us today as we celebrate 25 years of marriage celebrations in 2023. A huge part of those celebrations are these webinars, and you guys for coming, so thank you so much for participating. In today's webinar, we're excited to be joined by Kayla Adams. She is a licensed clinical social worker and certified sex therapist and educator based in Salt Lake City, Utah. As a Utah native, she understands how impactful it can be for folks to have supportive, evidence-based resources to better understand their sexuality, relationships, and gender. Kayla's work as a psychotherapist centers on individuals, couples, and extradyadic relationships to address issues impacting sexuality, gender expression, and sexual and relational experiences. In both therapeutic and educational settings, Kayla works to help people better understand the role of sex in their lives, how to communicate sexual needs, experience more mutual pleasure, unlearn sexual shame, aid individuals and couples as they navigate issues like sexual dysfunction, pain during intercourse or erectile dysfunction, low desire, sex drive, infidelity, and disconnection in relationships. In the webinar today, you'll learn how communication skills increase pleasure and connection. Communicating with a partner is an essential component of sexual activity and intimacy. Additionally, engaging in the physical act is not only a part of what makes good sex, but good communication is essential in order for it to be satisfying, healthy, and safe. Talking about sex helps you and your partner or partners connect and learn about each other. Being open and honest with each other can lead to greater sexual comfort and satisfaction. Being able to communicate effectively with partners about sex is difficult for many people. In this webinar, we will be addressing the components that make an effective sexual communicator, while addressing the roadblocks that impact how many people are able to communicate about sex. If you have any questions during the entirety of this presentation, please ask them by entering your questions to the Q&A function that's found at the bottom of your screen. The chat will be turned off during the entirety of her presentation, so this is really the best place to ask Kayla questions. We'll have a 15-minute Q&A at the end of her presentation, so write down your questions and save them for the end. If you've joined us for the CEU credit today, make sure to stay on until the end of the presentation. The survey needed for your credit will automatically load onto the screen, and then you'll receive an email from the Utah Marriage Commission with your certificate. You may also email the Utah Marriage Commission if for some reason it doesn't load at utahmarriagecommission@usu.edu. to receive your survey on this webinar. Once the survey is completed, you'll attain an email with your CEU credit certification. We'll now turn the time over to Kayla for her presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexis, for that awesome introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful and happy to be here with you all. When they reached out to me about taking up some space to have a topic, I thought, what better than sexual communication? I know we have kind of a mixed crew today, meaning we have some folks that are clinicians, practicing clinicians like myself, as well as just individuals, people in couples, people who are dating that are trying to figure out, like, how do I engage with my sexual communication abilities? So I want this experience to reflect those different identities. So as we go through the material, I want you to continue to think about how each topic, each concept, each exercise, each question may apply to you, yourself, your partner, or the work that you do. Whether it's, I have a client who struggles with that, tie it to that, and let's see if we can get some information to help you address it in session. Or if it's like, I don't know how to say this to my partner, let's see how best you can approach that together, okay? Let me go ahead and share my presentation screen. I also want to encourage you all to actually have a piece of paper in front of you, because I think it's super important that we capture anything that comes to mind throughout this webinar. It's so easy for people to have a question in the moment, go, dang it, I wish I could have asked that. So certainly if you're not putting it in the Q&A box during the webinar, please write it down or make a note for yourself. Also great to take notes of anything that you feel like isn't potentially impactful for you or anybody in your life. So let's get down to it. Also, I'm going to be standing. I'm a therapist. I sit all day. I am sick of sitting, so I will be standing and engaging with you today. If it makes you nauseous to see me moving, I'm sorry, but I cannot sit for another hour today, so please bear with me. So we're talking about sexual communication and why it's so important. Something that I want to give you before we get there is, move this out of the way, the topics we're going to be covering in this presentation. Some of the topics will revolve around how you understand yourself as a sexual person, and that will get into your sexual values. We will talk about how you address some of the narratives that we hold that may get in the way of us communicating openly and effectively. Some of the benefits of communicating openly, right? There are some that we kind of probably already know, but there has been a lot of research done on sexual communication and the impact it has. So I just want to present that with you today. We'll also set the stage for communication, right? Context matters. The place, the moods, the way in which we do that all matters. And so I want to make sure that you all know how to set up your context to have the communication go as smoothly as it can. We'll talk about the various stages that people struggle with communicating before sex, during sex, particularly hard for a lot of folks, and after sex, maybe when you need to give feedback or check in on something. And of course, I like to give you potential topics. I see this in my therapy room all the time where folks bring in, like, I don't know how to say this. So I do want to kind of spark your imagination about the things you're struggling to say, or just kind of notice that you're not alone in the fact that you don't know how to say it. And of course, the Q&A, as Alexis said, I really want to make sure those questions are specific to you and your needs. So please bring them here. You have free access to a sex therapist, not often cheap, not often readily available. So please make sure that you do that, okay? All right. I want to set the tone really quick. And when I say set the tone, I mean, I want to kind of give you an idea of what I want you to keep in mind throughout this webinar, right? First of all, is there are limits to the scope of this webinar. A lot of this will be centered on couples, right? When I say couples, I mean two people in a relationship. And this is with the understanding that oftentimes there aren't two people in a relationship. There's maybe three, four, five, if you are non-monogamous, if you're open. So if you are in those settings, please keep this in mind. Also, there is a lot more information to be had about sexual communication that will not fit in 45 minutes or the question and answer time. So please don't feel like this is exhaustive. There's a lot to learn. And I'm happy to connect with or provide resources if people feel like they want to dig a little bit deeper. Again, this is directed to those in committed relationships. These can cross over to, say, you're dating. So these skills and tools can cross over, but there's a level to which we have comfort and ability to communicate with people we're already in relationships with. So this will be more directed to committed relationships. Again, my goal is to help partners learn new ways of communicating and informing practitioners today. So that is what I'm centered on, is how can I connect this to folks who want to communicate better and to folks who are providing the skills to communicate. Please take some time as I talk through things. I'll give you pauses, I'll ask you questions, but I really want you to reflect on the material and capture any questions, as I said. Take some time to see, does that apply to me? Maybe it used to apply to you and you've kind of gotten past it. Celebrate yourself. Maybe it still applies to you and it's frustrating. Recognize you're not alone in that and try to take what you can from what we're doing here. And of course, there will be verbiage in here that some people may be uncomfortable. I will talk very plainly about certain parts of sexuality, certain sexual actions. And I understand for some people who aren't used to someone talking plainly about sex, that may feel a little uncomfortable. You may feel itchy. I'm very much a person who's like, uncomfortability means there's an opportunity to learn. So please, if you're feeling uncomfortable, sit with that. Why am I uncomfortable? Have I heard that before? Am I nervous about doing that myself? Whatever that is, but this is self-knowledge you're gaining as well. And if you're a practitioner, if you're uncomfortable with this, that's going to inform your work, right? If a client comes in and says some of the things I'm saying and you're uncomfortable, how do you want to make sure that you're making space for that? So let's keep all of this in mind, okay? So I hear this all the time, whether it's in a therapy space or it's friends or random people who figure out what I do. But one of the top questions that I get asked are, how do I get good at sex? And I think they're often surprised at what I say to them because they think I'm going to say, well, this position is the key, or this toy will change your life, right? How many times have we seen the covers of a Cosmo telling us that they'll give us all the tricks to blow our partner's mind, which I'm sure they can be fun depending. But the linchpin of being good at sex, one of the biggest linchpins of that is being able to communicate intently, effectively, and informed. So making sure that you're able to do this will improve your sex life tenfold, right? Being able to say, I don't like this, being able to ask, I don't like that. So please, 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 please take this as this is how I'm going to get good at sex. This is key to being good at sex. Okay. What is sexual communication? Right? We talk about sex often. We talk about communication all the time. And in general, sex communication is just like being able to create a space where you can trade information effectively, right? And sexual communication is very similar to that. Sexual communication is when you and your partner are able to freely express your needs, wants, knowing and trusting your partner's going to be open to hearing it, even if they don't agree with you, even if they don't want to do whatever you're saying, that they'll seriously hear you, validate why you want it, and try to problem solve whether they want that or not, right? So being able to sexually communicate is all about that. Can I take in what my partner's saying? Can I express what I need to my partner? And how do I give back affirming communication so they know they're heard, understood, valued, and then from there, you two can problem solve whether or not it's going to happen or not, but at least you know what's going on. It's better to be informed. There are many, many benefits to communicating about sexuality. Um, it's key in any relationship. I think when folks get into my therapy room, they're like, you're a sex therapist. So we're going to start talking about all the sex things, right? Positions and toys and pleasure. And yeah, we will get there. But the first thing I like to see is, can you talk about the dishes? Can you talk about domestic pieces? Because a lot of folks can't. A lot of folks struggle with those types of things. So if you don't know how to communicate about those things, it's going to be even harder to communicate about something as often vulnerable and loaded as sex, right? So first, I want you to think about real quick how comfortable you feel in just general communication at all. Do you feel like you can effectively tell your partner, hey, I need more time with you? Can you explain why something frustrated you? Maybe they didn't take out the trash when you'd asked them to. Can you effectively negotiate that? Because if you can, that's going to set you up to better communicate about sex. So we want to make sure that baseline, if you're a clinician, make sure your clients are communicating well in general before you even start talking about sex, right? Because if they don't know how, when we start talking about sex and pleasure, they may start hurting each other. And if you're not a clinician and you're in a relationship, or you're trying to figure out how to say things, start with how do we communicate about other things first? Can we improve that? Can I learn more about how they communicate best before jumping into that? But just recognize that benefits of sexual communication are vast. Here are some of those that I've collected both in research and in experience. But positive, pleasurable sexual experiences come out of communication when you can say very clearly, very effectively, this is how I want to be touched. This is when I like to be touched, right? These are contexts that make me more open to it, right? Then you're probably going to have better experiences than just kind of hoping they read your mind or hoping you can read their mind, all that good stuff. It also brings you closer, making you feel safer and more secure. Again, if you can freely say, hey, this bothered me, right? And you can trust that your partner will be open to that. Talk about security, talk about feeling that chill. Like, I can say this to my partner and they know that I'm not trying to hurt them and we can talk about it. Nothing feels better than that. So, this communicating is going to be a benefit to just your security as a whole. It also increases your confidence and competence as a sexual partner. Again, the confidence part is getting good at sex, right? Because you're not going to know what your partner wants all of the time. Something they liked on a Tuesday may not be like what they liked on a Saturday. Our bodies are constantly changing. And so if you're able to say, hey, do you like this today? Then it's probably going to be more likely that they can tell you yes or no. Again, allowing you to be a better partner. And then, of course, if you know exactly how they want to be touched, then you feel a little bit more confident instead of trying to guess. And of course, you get to find new interests together when you're kind of exchanging that information. Maybe you stumble upon something you didn't know you both wanted, and that's so exciting, right? Or you stumble upon something that you don't have in common, but you can make space and have your partner seen about it. And that feels great too. So these are just some of the benefits of communicating your sexual need. I want you to take a moment and think about how these would feel, right? For your clients, for yourself, if they were able to make space for sexual communications, how this would impact their relationship overall or your relationship. All right. So let's start before the communication, right? Before sexual acts, right? I want you to first start with yourself. We start this communication journey by looking at ourselves as an individual sexual being. Even if you've been partnered for 20, 30 years, you are still an individual sexual being on your own. And it's important that you understand your sexual self and how that informs what you will be communicating. I love this quote by Pepper Schwartz. Our sexual self is a complex combination of social and cultural biological inheritance, and that can't be more true, right? We get how we understand our sexuality from social norms, cultural norms. We get it from biology, what parts of us feel good and why, where are our erogenous zones. We get it from media, we get all these messages. But it's very important that your clients and yourself understand why you like certain things, why certain things are not for you. Are your values your own? So we'll talk a little bit right now about sexual values and the role they play in communication. Sexual values, again, inform what we know about ourselves and what we can tell our partner. I can't tell you how many times in a therapy room I have someone say, I know I'm not having good sex, but I don't know what I want. So we got to start here. We haven't even communicated yet because I need to know that you know what to say. I need to know that you understand yourself and can advocate for the type of pleasure that feels good. So it's essential that you take some time and suss out your sexual values, right? And our sexual values are those beliefs, those principles defining what we feel is right for a person sexually. Essentially, standards of sexual behaviors, feelings, thoughts a person views as good or right. Be careful with this because what we often see is somebody will hold a sexual value and expect everybody else to hold it as well. But I think that what's important is my sexual values are my own and I can advocate for them and I can be proud of them, but they don't have to be everybody else's. That's a part of sexual positivity. Also, it can be really invalidating for a partner if you're thinking they should match your sexual values, right? You two can have some different sexual values. The goal is to have some overlapping so you're on the same page about what's acceptable, but you might have some that aren't, and that's okay. But make sure you make space for other sexual values that aren't your own. Again, I love a good quote. So intentional sexual values translate into enjoyable sexual behavior. So the more intentional you are about what you want and why you want it, the more you can communicate that, the more you can get what you need to enjoy pleasure. Here's a couple of examples of what sexual values can look like. I know I say sexual values, but I like to show examples about what they often look like. So this can be I value masturbation as a supportive part of my sexuality. This is something I don't think enough couples talk about when they get together. How do you feel about masturbation and what role would you like it to play in our relationship? And I don't think a lot of people think about that for themselves either as they are singled or coupled and how that may change. It's important for me to feel emotionally close to my sexual partner. Maybe that's the linchpin about why you and your partner aren't having as much sex. You're feeling emotionally distant, right? So having that value present and knowing that that's important for it will inform how you interact differently together. Using a clitoral vibrator is an important part of my pleasure. We see a lot of women who get very nervous about asking for a toy in the room, a vibrator in the room. And maybe that's a central part of them having an orgasm or having pleasure at all. But they have to know that that is a central part and that's okay, right? So this is why it's so important to determine your values. Please take a moment and think about, how do I understand my sexual values? How does my partner understand theirs? How do I understand theirs? How do they understand mine? And what spaces can I create so that we can all kind of understand our sexual values a little bit better? This is a exercise I'll often have clients go through when they're unsure about their sexual values, unsure about what they want. So please feel free to kind of look this over. I'm not sure if this is in the way. I don't know how to move it. Oh, there we go. Okay. So write out your sexual autobiography. Who are you? What you want to be? If you want to take a screenshot of this, please feel free to do so. I think it's super, super important to have exercises to help flesh out like what is going on here. But this is one of my favorite exercises to walk through with clients. I think it's super helpful and really gets us thinking about things that nobody often asks us. I don't know about you, but I don't think at the age of 17, when most folks start to have sex, that someone is saying, hey, what would you like to experience with sex? Right? What sounds good to you and why? Which I wish we were asking more young people. But please ask this of yourselves, your clients, your partner more often so that that's informing how you communicate about sex. So when it comes to the communication of it all, there are some components that will impact that communication, just what I've seen in the research again and what I've seen in the therapy room. So one of the pieces that can help or hurt the sexual communication is understanding your partner's communication style, right? Your partner comes from their own experience and they may communicate in certain ways. So making sure I understand how my partner best communicates, how to meet them where they are, they understand how I do, and meeting them there as you communicate about this sets you up for a better interaction. Okay. Again, contexts that allow for more curiosity and empathetic reaction. Again, context matters. Please do not try to have a sexual conversation when your partner gets home from a very stressful, long day where they did not feel good today. Because you saying, hey, I need this from you, or springing something new on them may not go over as well. So try to find a context where you know your partner or yourself will be a little bit more curious and empathetic if there's something that comes up that would give you a harsh reaction. Relational health status is a big one. I said it before with like, what if emotional safety makes sex easier? Relational health status is just as important. Again, I do not touch sex in therapy until I know that their relationship is supportive and loving and working pretty smoothly. They know how to heal ruptures because one, that impacts sex. And two, again, if they can't communicate about that, then probably not going to be able to communicate about sex very well. Allow first reactions to settle. Sometimes we'll bring something to our partner and they will just kind of freak out a little bit, right? This is something new. They're uncertain about what it means for the two of you, and they may not have the best reaction. Give them a second. If you notice it's a bad reaction, be like, I see you're struggling with this. Let's take a moment and just think about it. I know this is hard, and take a step back. And the same for yourself. If you notice you're having a bad reaction, take a step away. Like, I notice I'm having a reaction, come back to it. Provide affirmation of good, even if you give a critique. Okay. We often give critiques. You didn't do this, right? And our partner then hears that we did everything wrong. So how can you say, hey, I really love when we do blank? I did struggle here, right? That's kind of, again, setting the stage for the communication to go a little bit better. Consider how you would want your partner to critique and react to your feedback, right? If you're frustrated that your partner is not reacting well, you can see why they would be frustrated if you weren't reacting well, right? So please consider how you want your partner to respond and give the same back to them, even if they try to respond back to you. So consider these components that impact communication. Are they in line for you? Are you talking about it with them? Are you talking about it with yourself? Bring these up in those spaces so that, again, you can set the stage for this to go a little bit better than maybe it would have. As a therapist, I use a lot of narrative therapy, and narrative therapy is based on the stories we tell ourselves. Humans are made up of stories, collections of stories. Some are passed down, some are created by us. But oftentimes those narratives can be harsh. They can have things that aren't fully true. They can be really, really limiting sometimes. And sex has a ton of harsh narratives, of hard narratives, of incorrect narratives. And I find often that these narratives can impact how we can communicate. So I wanted to give a little space and time to this. The standard narratives that impact how we communicate, and when I say standard narratives, I mean the ideas and messages we get about how sex should happen. This can be things like sex happens at night. Sex has to have penetration involved. Sex has to end in orgasm, right? These are all standard narratives we've heard, we've internalized from the wider culture about what sex should look like. And they're often limiting. So what happens if, oh, my partner did an orgasm and that's what it's supposed to look like? And now our narrative starts taking us on a really harsh path, right? If we're worried about how our communication will impact that standard narrative, then we probably won't say anything. So think about the narratives that are there getting in the way of you communicating, and if they need to go because they're not part of your sexual values or your sexual routine. Gender-based narratives are big, right? Men are supposed to do this during sex. Women do this during sex, right? If you really want to be assertive in the bedroom, but you're worried about how your male partner will take it because men are the assertive ones, you probably won't say what you want. So again, be mindful of these narratives. How are they impacting me? Can I get rid of some of them so there's more space? Confidence in how our partner will receive it, right? If we've told ourselves this story, if I say this, my partner's going to blank, right? Something negative or harsh, then it's going to stop us dead in our tracks from saying a word. Investigate that narrative. Be like, well, maybe they're not going to react harshly. Maybe they're also interested. I know they care about me. Maybe that care will come out in how they receive it. Change those stories a little bit to reflect more about the reality of the situation. Confidence in how we can express our interests. What if you're telling yourself, I don't know how to say this, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say this well, so I'm not going to say it. Sometimes just preface it with that. Say, I don't know how to say this, but I'm going to try to say it, right? I would rather you give that preface than just say nothing at all. And usually that lets our partners know to have an antenna up for what you're trying to do, even if you don't do it well. Sometimes there's embarrassment about a sexual act that you want, right? If you're interested in having anal sex and you're male, there's a lot of narratives around that are based in gender, but you're also embarrassed because of it. So, how do we get that out of there? Being afraid of offending your partner, past messages about being nerdy. These are all, and again, this is not exhaustive. There are probably many narratives present that impact how people are able to communicate effectively about sex. But this is a great moment to think about what narratives do impact that and how can I address them, change them to ones that are more supportive of open communication. So let's talk about how to start the conversation. So this is before sex, right? And I want to talk about like how do I get to the point of just sharing what I would like. So first, make a plan for what you'd like to discuss, right? We already did the values piece. I know what my sexual values are, right? We already thought about the limiting narratives. I know what's going to get in the way and I've changed those around. And now I'm ready to like make a plan for how we're going to discuss. I'm going to let them know beforehand, right? I'm going to set it up so we can really have time to talk about it. I'm not going to do it rushed. All of that is going to be important in having this conversation. Right. Start with what works well sexually now. Like I said, start with what's good. There's probably good things present. Probably. So don't overwrite those because they're just going to hear you saying everything's wrong if you don't tell them what's right, oftentimes. Using I statements. I know we've heard this before, but they really do change how something is said. Instead of saying, you never seem to care about what I want to do, you could say, I would like it if we could try doing some of the things I like when we have sex. That did not blame, but it did inform, right? So please try to use that as best you can. Invite them into the conversation by asking what they would like and any changes they want. This is not just about what you're asking for. Invite them in and be like, how do you feel about that? What would you like to do? So they know that this isn't just about them doing something that you don't like or something wrong. You want this to be a collective team effort to have good sex. And please be curious, be open to hearing and understanding. If your partner says something and you struggle with it, that to me is a signal to ask some questions. I don't get why you want it. I don't, that sounds really weird to me. If judgments come up, that tells me we need to ask some questions so we can fully understand why our partner is interested, even if we're not, right? So please do your best with that. The question at the bottom is one to be considered. What context do you know you and your partner talk best in? Again, apply this to how you're thinking about how to use this information. Are there contexts that work better? Are there things you've done in the past that have hurt the conversation itself? Consider how you would change that up if you could. So this is an exercise I often give couples as well. We can either do this in session while I'll let them talk and just reminding them of the skills and tools, empathy, curiosity, validation, I statements, those kinds of things. But I'll give them these prompts and let them just have a discussion and practice within a contained space. But I also really encourage clients to do this outside the therapy space as well, where they can practice it in the wild, as I call, but setting aside some time to really just do like a sexuality check-in. Um, I would describe my sexual style as what? Um, Love when you initiate in this way. I feel the most turned on when this is a great way to, again, exchange information, be open about it. What makes it hard to connect to your sexual self? How can I support? All of this is great. So please consider, do I know the answers to these questions for my partner? Do I know the answers to these questions for myself? If my partner asks me, again, we're going back to the reason why sexual values are so important. Okay, so please make it a point to do exercises like this, whether it's in session or on your own, so you can just do a little check-in on that. So let's talk about sexual communication during sex. For me, I've heard a lot of fear stories about how to communicate about sex during the act. I know a lot of folks have a lot of narratives that come up around, am I going to kill a mood, right, by saying something? What if it's a critique? What if I need them to stop doing something or move somewhere else? What if they get really upset about that? Again, I want you to trust that your partner can take feedback. Relational health is important. My partner can take feedback from me, and I don't have to own their emotions about that feedback. So during sex, you're in the middle of sex, you know you want something else, or you want to ask if they need something else. I'm a big fan of overt communication in the moment, and that is being able to say, this is what I want, this is how I want it, very clearly, right? A lot of folks will try to nudge somebody or hint at it, and that's just not going to get you where you want sometimes, and they're going to get confused. So I think it works a lot better if you're able to just say, hey, can you touch me here? And there are a lot of sexy ways to do this. It doesn't have to kill the mood. Even if it does kill the mood, it's okay to kill the mood for a second to get what you need. Because if you're directing them where you would like them to get the best pleasure you can, I can probably guarantee the mood will come back, right? So please don't be afraid to kill the mood a little bit if you need to. And also, the likelihood of killing the mood is not as high as we think it is. Your partner wants to hear from you. And think about the fact that you would want your partner to tell you where they wanted you, right? You wouldn't want them to hold it in or tiptoe. You'd be like, tell me. So offer them the same thing, right? You can also elicit information, right? And that's where the checking in sexy ways can be really helpful, right? Do you like the way I touch you here? How does this feel like that? Faster or slower, right? It's not just about them volunteering information. It's also about you eliciting it. Maybe they forgot, maybe they're not as comfortable, whatever reason. But you two are a team on this pleasure channel, right? So do your best to show up for your teammate asking what they need. Using your hands or body is another option outside of overt communication. I think this is the least scary of the overt for a lot of people. So you can use your hand or your body to show your partner where you would like things. I don't think there's as much clear communication, especially if you need a different tempo, if you need a different placement. So I'm fine with it. Especially as you get more knowledge about your partner sexually, if you've done something before it, and a simple hint will tell them exactly what you need. But if you're still struggling to communicate, maybe try overt first and then start to use hands, moving things where you want it and showing them. And then, yeah, use positive ask. I'm going to say that throughout this entire presentation. When we are coming at our partners, we care about them. So please let that show in how you communicate with them. Use positive ask like, I love it when you blank. When we're giving critiques, we're often saying what we don't like, and that can hit the ear a little harsher than we would like. So do your best to say what you would want, right? Maybe they're not doing it now, but say it. Say, I love when you kiss me here. I love when you touch me like this. And that's more positive than just, you're doing this wrong. Okay. We talked about these pieces. I don't know why it's coming up again, but here it is. But again, remember these components as you're doing both. Oh, am I going backwards or forwards? I don't know what's going on, y'all. I'm so sorry. There we go. Sorry. All right, sexual communication after sex. Now, I love a good download after sex for clients. It's great to just check in, share the limerence, the fun about what you just experienced, talk about what was great about it, what you want to continue, and then the other part, which is what about the things that didn't work well, which can be hard to say, right? Again, those narratives are going to come up about how's my partner going to take it? Maybe I should be different and this would be fine. Try to get rid of those narratives. If you have something you need, you probably need it. So trust yourself. Maybe you had a sexual experience where something happened that wasn't enjoyable. It was uncomfortable or even painful. Sex should not be painful unless you want it to be, right? So please speak up about that didn't feel great. I want it to look different next time. And again, call them into that conversation. How did you like that? Oh, you enjoyed it? I enjoyed it like this, but I think I would change this. And it becomes more of a problem solving experience together as a team than it is like you're doing this wrong. Again, our partners want to know that they are giving you the pleasure that they want. Most loving, caring partners are not coming into sex thinking, I don't care if they have pleasure. They probably do want you to enjoy yourself. So set them up as best you can to do just that, right? Make sure that you're giving the feedback. I put this quote in here because this is a common one that I see with clients, especially vulva-bodied folks, where it says, I think next time we need more lube. Not enough vulva-bodied people ask for lube because they think I should be wet, right? That's a standard narrative. If I'm turned on, if I'm attracted to my partner, I should be wet enough, which we know is not correct. Our bodies don't work like that, unfortunately. And so being able to say, hey, I think next time or during sex, we should use more lube, again, reinforces that you both want this to be pleasurable. So I've amassed a list of common subjects that folks often struggle to talk about with their partner. Again, I kind of want you to review this list and consider which ones come up for you, which ones, strike you right there where you're like, I actually don't know how to say that. Oh, or I said it before and it didn't go well. Or my partner said it to me. Maybe I didn't take it very well, right? So I really want you to just take a second for the folks that are coming as a partner, someone who's married, consider the ones that have come up. And for those of you who are clinicians, consider, have you asked about these questions? Do you feel like your clients feel comfortable enough to talk about or ask about these? Certain pieces of this, things like pornography, again, something that should be discussed as couples come together, probably before they're married. But I can't tell you how many couples come in and they have completely different views on the use of pornography in their relationship, and they didn't talk about it before. They kind of just assumed the other person was on their, say, wavelength, and now they've hit a roadblock because turns out they do have different perspectives. So I would encourage so much of this to be considered for your clients, yourselves, your partner, and maybe there's not any on here that you feel are difficult to talk about or ask for or follow up on, but maybe it sparks some other topics that you know need to be dug into, you know may come up, you know you're struggling with, or your partner's alluded to, or anything that would make your sex life just more pleasurable. Again, this is all about pleasure and connection with sex, right? Those are most of the reasons why folks have sex, is to connect and to experience physical pleasure. And communication is the avenue for us to get there. So please, please, please do more work here. Okay. I want to start to finish this off. I know I'm at time. Almost. I got 5 more minutes. When it's all said and done, I say this to every single client I have. I say this at every webinar presentation that I give, because I really want this to hammer in to folks that your pleasure is your responsibility. Now, I know that sounds funny, But when I say that, what I mean is at the end of the day, you are the expert on your experience, right? Your partner can have known you for 30 years and for the most part know your favorite things, your favorite foods, how you feel about this or that, but they're not in your body, right? They don't know what aches and pains you have. They don't know where feels good at different times in your hormonal cycle. They're not aware of like the comfort you feel with certain things. So please, please, please take ownership of your sexuality. Recognize, like, I need to understand my values. I need to understand why they're important to me. I need to understand what narratives make it hard for me to engage and what I need from my partner. Your partner is your co-conspirator in pleasure, right? They're the ones who get to be your Robin to your Batman. They're going to help you get the job done. But at the end of the day, they're going to need the superhero to finish telling them, where are we going with this, right? Like, holy smokes, Batman. That's what they need from you. So please, please, please take ownership. Your partner is not responsible for your pleasure. You are. So that means you have to communicate openly, effectively. And the last thing I want to say about this is oftentimes I have clients who say, I said this thing to my partner and I said it in the best way that I could, and they didn't take it well. I should have kept my mouth shut. And there's something to that where I'm like, just because your partner didn't take it well, it does not necessarily mean you should not have spoken up. You cannot own all of their responses, all of their feelings. It's not for you to own. Your responsibility is to be open and honest, and their responsibility is to be open to it. And if they aren't able to, that's a different, again, going back to relational health, that's a different conversation to be had. So please, please take ownership of your sexuality and how you would like to engage with it. Okay. So I know this is when we get to the question and answer time. I'm adding this in just as like trying to get the thoughts swirling about how you want to ask questions, whether it's clinical or relationship. So please, please think about these as you do it. Alexis, take it away.
Thank you for providing those. I love that. Just a reminder, if you want to ask Kayla a question, use the Q&A function that's at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get them on our end. We actually already have a question, which is, how do I discover my partner's sexual values?
So with this, and I may have covered pieces of this in here, but I wanted to reiterate, calling them into that conversation is so, so important, right? So start off with like, do they know what sexual values are? If you say, hey, what are your sexual values? They're gonna be like, huh? What? But talk about like, hey, I read an article about this. What do you think about it? Right? And have them first inform you about where they're at around how they understand sexual values. And then from there, you can have more of an open conversation about what those actually are, and they know how to answer that question a bit better.
Thank you. I love that invitation. Our next question is, how do you think it's best to set boundaries around kinks? From my understanding, a person without a kink can't orgasm without taking part in that kink, but it's not something I like doing. What are your thoughts?
This will vary, right? So kinks, I think folks can often conflate kinks with fetishes. And fetishes tend to be more in the realm of I cannot orgasm, right? Without this being present. Kinks are a little more varied. Not to say there aren't folks like that, but if that kink is necessary for orgasm every single time you're having sex, it may get into the fetish realm. So let's make sure we understand the distinction between those. When it comes to boundaries around kinks, right? Again, first is information. What is their kink? What parts of it are important to them? Why is it important to them? Can you understand what it is to your partner? That's the first thing I want to know is trade information. The second piece of that, if you're like, okay, I know all these things, maybe it's still not your jam, right? We often go from all or nothing thinking. So we'll black and white. If they say, and I'm just going to throw it out there, if they say, hey, my kink is spanking, right? Impact play. And you go, oh, no, I can't do any of that ever. But you get all the information. You're like, it still doesn't feel good to me to do. That's okay. I'm curious if there's any part of that kink that you can lean into. So maybe it's not using instruments for spanking. Maybe it's like, I can do my hand that extent, right? Or maybe it's I can be spanked, but I can't spank, right? Or I can watch videos on spanking, but I can't engage with it myself. So find if there's any, we call it gray areas. I like to call them technicolor areas, where there's more potential opportunities to engage. But again, your only responsibility to your partner is being open, understanding, and honest about what you can do there, and trying your best to see if you can meet it. If you just absolutely cannot do it, it's a hard limit. That's another discussion about like, how do we want to deal with the things we just cannot see eye to eye on.
Thank you. Our next question is, how do you deal with differing sexual values that neither of you are willing to budge on? Is there hope?
No. I'm curious about the never able to budge part of that question. Because if you're in a committed relationship and you've probably already budged on other values, and I'm curious why those values could be budged on and the sexuality can't, and where is the relational skills to see if there is anything there. But say you try to do that and you try to be empathetic and open and honest, and you both still can't get on the same page. Again, what does that mean for your relationship not to have those things included? Right? A lot of us have our core needs right in the middle here, and around our core needs are our areas of flexibility. If you're talking about the things that aren't sex, I know my core need is I love being on time. My partner, not so much, right? And that used to be contention because I thought, you need to be like me. And he's like, you need to be like me. But then we found this area of flexibility. And I said, do I have to be on time all of the time? No, probably not. Right. And he said, can I be on time to certain things that matter more? Yes. And we came into those areas of flexibility. So I'm wondering if there are any areas of flexibility around your values, or if you fully understand what those sexual values mean to your partner and hold empathy and care for them. So maybe explore some of that.
Yeah, they said for clarification, it's based upon religious values.
That's a hard one, right? That's a very, very deep one that I see often, especially if there's mixed faith. I'm not sure if they're mixed faith, but if you are, one that's common, maybe this is grounded in it, is if you have a partner who's okay with masturbation and a partner who's not okay with masturbation, right? We have to do like any other issue, talk about how do we want it to be a part of a relationship and what's the hard limits, right? What are you willing to give because you care about me? And what are you not willing to give? And can I be okay with that? There's a lot of things that we decide we cannot be okay with in our relationship. And what that means for the relationship is up to the two of you. But I think that's a question. It's a hard question. Don't get me wrong. When it comes to a stalemate, then I have to ask, okay, what does this mean for the two of you? Right? Does it mean contention all the time? Do you want to fight every time? Do you want to die on this hill every time? Or how do you want to self-soothe, help yourself get through the moments where that comes up?
Thank you. Our next question is, can you have a healthy relationship if partners have different levels of sexual attraction to each other? I feel bad that my partner isn't physically attracted to me as I am to them.
Yes. And I'll say this because there are so many dimensions to attraction. I think we as a culture have really honed in on the physical attraction as the biggest, most important dimension. And it's part of that. But if you think about that, then you think about, is this person funny? Do they make me feel safe? Right? Are they kind? Are they interesting? Do we do this together? Do we have this in common? And that all builds up to be more attraction. So maybe physically that's not your cup of tea, and that's okay. Right? But how else are you attracted to each other? Because there's probably more to it than just you look the way I would hope you to look. And I also am not a fan of the black and white attraction. I bet there's pieces of your body, physical appearance, how you dress, that can be attractive, right? Gosh, your hair is really shiny. Gosh, your smile knocks my, socks off, right? Your butt looks great in those jeans, right? It's probably not, again, I don't like black and white. So I'm going to look for ways in which we can reach for attraction in different ways, because you're not just what you look like, and you're not together just for what you look like.
Our next question is, do you think sex during a fight is okay? This narrative is pushed in media that fighting sex is hot. Do you think that can actually help conflict?
I'm like a doctor in the fact that I don't say always or never, right? I don't say that always works or that never works, because humans are messy. We're very, very much in gray areas. So yes, I agree with you. The media does push the like makeup sex, right? Or hate having sex, right? That is something that we've seen a lot in the culture. Do I think there are certain parts of us, of our communities, of our populations that can engage with that healthfully? Sure. But I think it's a little more rare than we've been led to believe. And I also think the necessity of safety, connection, security that we often need to actually engage pleasurably in sex have to be there for a lot of folks. And for those folks, it won't be healthy. So this will vary for everybody. If some people are like, I can be mad at you and have sex and I now feel connected, great. Or if it's, I cannot have sex with you till I feel emotionally and mentally connected, that's fine too. And it's going to vary for everybody.
Our next question is, what are some ways for long-term partners to keep the spark alive?
Oh, I like this one. I like all the questions, but this one I think is again one on every Cosmo link ever. So humans really love novelty, right? But we also love security. We are weird contrasting creatures where we want an established partner who we can trust, but we also love something new and shiny. So trying to bridge that gap can be really, really difficult. Some ways that I encourage clients to do that is one, yes, to be open to new things, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the extreme things. I think people hear that and think I want them to go to a sex club. Maybe it's having sex at a different time of day, seeing how you feel. Maybe it's using different textures if you have sex. Maybe it's saying different things, watching different videos, but just start tweaking things and see if that changes how you feel and experience it, and be very mindful of it. Also, get some separation from your partner. When we are around our partner 24/7, COVID did a number on sex. When we're around our partners 24/7, a lot of that mystery is gone. And now we're just like too close, and the security is high, but that doesn't often make for passionate sex. So get some space, miss them, think about them, about them while you're gone. Um, Also, watching your partner do something they're really good at that doesn't involve you can be extremely sexy and takes you back to the early days when you were learning about them. If you watch your partner snowboard, play a sport, right? Do a webinar, right? If you're doing something like that and you're like, gosh, you're so good at what you do, that kind of makes you really excited about them, right? Keep trying new things together, try risks together. Again, I don't mean you don't have to go to the extremes. If you want to, you can. But risks also mean we tried this new cooking class or we tried this recipe together and it was awful. We went and tried this new sport and we both sucked at it, but we took a risk together. That's how to create more intimacy as well. So there's lots of different ways, but consider how close you are, how much novelties in your life, how much you break routine, and how separate you can be from your partner at times.
Our next question is, how can you work with a partner who has sexual shame based on past experiences like sexual abuse and trauma?
The first thing I would say is make sure you're as informed as you can be about the impacts of sexual abuse and trauma. Be informed about your role as a partner, what they may be going through, because you want to carry as much empathy and care and security in there with you as you can. Folks with sexual trauma and abuse histories already have a hard time with security and feeling safe. And if they've chosen you as your partner, that's one of the things you're saying, yes, I'll do because I choose you, is to create safe spaces and to move at their pace. I'm not saying it's easy. So have your feelings. You can be frustrated, but that frustration doesn't have to come out in being unkind to them or being impatient with them, right? Make sure you can emotionally process your own feelings about it in your own spaces with your own supports. But yeah, so be informed about what that looks like. Support them, show up in the ways they have asked you to, suggest ways that you could show up and see if that's a good idea. Um, I'm going to say therapy is great when it comes to addressing sexual trauma and shame. So check in with how they feel about potentially doing that for themselves as an individual. maybe for you as a couple, if you're trying to engage in sex together still, and how you want to navigate that. But again, fostering as much safety, as much control for them as you can is going to be very, very paramount. And let them know that you understand the impacts and you want to solve it with them. But that's not easy. Get as much support as you can as you do it.
The next question is, how do you feel about using phones after sex?
Ooh. I love the like millennial 21st century questions because they're so new and we're still doing so much research on what are the impacts of right cell phones everywhere, computers everywhere. Um, Here's the thing is again, I want to go back to how the couple first feels about it. If as soon as you finish having sex, you immediately whip out your phone and your partner's upset by that, it's probably a good time to like talk to them about it, talk to them about their expectations about that, because you don't want to cause any more ruptures. I think you should also ask yourself, why am I going right to my phone? Right? Right afterwards. And sometimes it's, I got to check this email because it's important, which is understandable, right? Maybe you got a work thing. Sometimes it's just you weren't mindful when you were having sex. So your mind was already thinking about, I got to check my phone. So checking in like, am I present when I'm having sex? What does my partner expect of me after we're done? Is it cuddling? Can I ask them? Hey, do you want to cuddle or how are you feeling? And they're like, no, I want to check my phone too. Great, then you're on the same page, right? But make sure whatever you're hoping to get out of that sexual experience, you're very clear about. If it's I want connection and intentionality, probably keep the phones out for a little bit. If it's a quickie and you're like, I got to get back to the thing, then maybe that's more open to having your phone there. But I think you probably know what the impact is for yourself. Check in with your partner to see what the impact is for them. Yeah.
Thanks. We'll just do one last question and then we'll close out the webinar.
All right.
But this question is, I'm about to get married and we're both virgins and we haven't talked about sex yet. He's pretty religious and every time I've brought up even making out, he's kind of not very happy about it. So I'm scared to bring it up with it being so close. I feel like we need to talk about it. What would you suggest?
Mm. The first thing, I'd be curious about his reaction to the making out. If she hasn't done this already, or if they've already discussed it, but first asking, I notice when I bring this up, you get a little uncomfortable. Can you tell me what's going on there? And again, calling him into that conversation. Also sharing your own uncomfortability. It makes me really, I get why you're uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable knowing we're about to get married and we don't know a lot about each other physically. So we're both uncomfortable. Can we talk about that uncomfortability? Right? I really love people using pre-marriage counseling. It can be a very short round of counseling. It can be like 3 sessions where you can just kind of have those conversations with someone who's going to facilitate them with you. A lot of times you don't know what questions to ask, you don't know how to do this, so that person can be your guide. So if that's possible, that's an option. Also, again, I think it's important that you emphasize, start talking about what's important to you within a marriage. And don't make it sex related quite yet. Just say, hey, I know I like the dishes this way. How about you? Right? I know I don't like doing this on a Sunday. How about you? Right? Just have that conversation and then slowly turn to, I know that I love hugging. I love back massages, right? How about you? I'm nervous about our first night. How about you? You've now opened this up to just a whole discussion about your life. So maybe that can be helpful as well.
I love that. Thanks, Kayla. As well, we offer resources around that, and congratulations to whoever that is about to get married. That's really exciting. We have on our website, strongermarriage.org, ePrep, which is a premarital approved education just online with you and your partner. We also have a relate assessment, which talks a lot about what Kayla said. It's just all about getting on the same page, those little questions about who's going to do the dishes, what do we feel like gender roles are, what's your family background, etc. So you can get on the same page with your spouse. So if you find that useful, please use that too. Thank you guys so much for coming. I want to give Kayla a little opportunity that if you guys want to reach out to her or have any other questions, that this is where you can contact her.
Awesome. Yes. So, again, you can contact me or follow me or engage with me on Instagram, or at my private practices Instagram page. You can also contact me at our website at simplemodern.com, well, .org, which is where I'm practicing right now. It's a group practice that does a lot of relational couples work. You'll find me right here. So if you feel like you'd like to work with me, or work with any of our great couples therapists, please feel free to do so. We really do a lot of good works with folks who are just trying to figure out, how do we do this thing called love? So thank you so much for having me, and taking up the space with all of you today, and all the great questions. I love doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, I second all of that. You guys make this happen for us. And thanks for showing that to us, Kayla.
Of
Once
course.
again, if you did attend this webinar for the CEU credit, please make sure to stay on to the very end of the webinar. The survey needed for your certification should automatically load onto your screen. You can also email us at marriagecommission@usu.edu for your survey. Once you complete the survey, we'll get that certification emailed back to you. Thank you so much, Kayla. Thanks everyone else. Have a great rest of your night.
Bye.